Hello everybody, this is Dumpster Cat, back with another rendition of the Tireless testing series. In this one, we're going to be playing up against Mono White Humans, a very respectable deck in the format right now, holds a very high meta share, and is quite fitting for this video as the mid-range versus aggro matchup is obviously very prevalent in Pioneer and just in Magic as a whole, and so I thought I'd make this video to kind of address that. And so the deck you see before you is a bit of an atypical version of BGX midrange in Pioneer. We see typical suspects such as Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Grimflayer, Briarbridge Tracker, Liliana the Veil, Cemetery Prowler, of course our Scavenging Oozes. However, we're flexing certain other cards, especially in the form of Treacherous Blessing and Vraska Golgari Queen. Two really interesting cards in these colors. We've seen Vraska before. I think Vraska is a playable card, usually just as like a one-of in typical mid-range decks. However, putting her plus ability alongside Treacherous Blessing has been a combo, if you say, that I've been testing out quite a bit and has been around even in Modern for quite a while, and I think it's quite powerful. I usually like playing this archetype of mid-range if Rakdos midrange is quite prevalent and other control variants of, say, like blue-white control or blue-red control are popular in the meta as a whole, just because obviously Treacherous Blessing plus Vraska Golgari Queen just nets you so many cards, and the downside of Treacherous Blessing is not that impactful. However, obviously in this video, since we will be up against Mono White Humans, the Treacherous Blessing will be a bit of a downfall in that sense. However, still going to be quite powerful, as you may see. Other interesting inclusions in this deck: Scrap Heap Scrounger. Don't think this card is entirely good or typically playable. However, because we're able to leverage the Grimflayer already with Treacherous Blessing, Vraska Golgari Queen, and Liliana of the Veil, I really just wanted a 2-drop creature that acts as obviously a creature, but also an artifact, and so Scrap Heap Scrounger was just the most powerful out of those cards. However, there is going to be a new 2-drop artifact creature like Scrap Heap Scrounger from the Brothers War. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it's direct upgrades to this, at least for this archetype. And so, with that being said, pretty stock sideboard. Yeah, and I'll see you in the match. Alright, and so we're here for game 1 of match 1 with a keepable hand off the top. Always love just seeing a combination of lands and spells. So we're just going to lead with an Other Room tapped. And so instantly we see the opponent with a Hopeful Initiate. And so immediately we know that this is going to be Mono White Humans. Like I said in the intro, I really always like playing the aggro matchup as a mid-range player, just because you kind of get to play a control plan where you're controlling the board, controlling your opponent's hand, and then leveraging very powerful creatures and very powerful combination of cards. As we see, we have a Treacherous Blessing already in hand and no Vraska, however, but very powerful effect nonetheless. And so here, we're just going to run out the Grimflayer. Obviously not too good against the aggressive deck, however, it's just the best play. Scrap Heap Scrounger also not looking too good in this matchup either. Luckily for us, they just go with another Hopeful Initiate. And here we have the option of either going for a Blessing or a Liliana. I just opt for the Liliana because I know Blessing is not going to be too much of a good tempo swing for us. We have to skip our turn 3, and then we're going to be taking damage with each spell we cast thereafter, especially not having Vraska in hand already. I don't really like playing out the Blessing, and so I just go for the Liliana. This does one of two things. Obviously, is going to be able to control our opponent's hand, tangentially gaining us life by forcing the opponent to attack her instead of us. And so we're just going to plus her and then put away the Scrap Heap Scrounger. We could have gone with the Blessing as well. I wouldn't have faulted anybody for doing that, but Scrounger gets us 2 cards in the graveyard, or card types in the graveyard, just as an extra boost for Grimflayer. So the opponent just discards the planes, then they cast a Brutal Cathar on turn 3, probably the worst card for us in this scenario, as they get to take our card, our Grimflayer, and then attack Liliana down to 2 loyalty. So we draw Scavenging Ooze, which is a very nice draw actually. We'd start by plussing, putting away one of the Treacherous Blessings. We see the opponent discarding a Hopeful Initiate, which is good for us. We're going to shock in Overgrown Tomb and then just play out the Scavenging Ooze, knowing that we have multiple activations available to us. We just want the most amount of green mana. And so the opponent curving out extremely nicely here. Had a bit of a slow start with the double initiates, but being able to go Brutal Cathar into Adeline the turn thereafter is quite powerful. And they will, I believe, attack with all, which makes sense, knowing that they want to take out the Liliana. However, it's good for us in the way that we get to trade, or not even trade, we get to just chump kill the Brutal Cathar as we have these Scavenging Ooze activations up. So that is just what we're going to do here. We're going to block the Cathar and then just sacrifice the Liliana. Take out the Hopeful Initiate, and then on end step we're going to exile the Cathar in the graveyard. And then, pretty nicely here, we do get a Delirious Grimflayer with only having 3 cards in the graveyard, which is really cool. I'm getting the Planeswalker enchantment and then the artifact creature. And so here, like I said earlier on in the game, I typically don't like playing Blessing Out if we don't have Vraska in hand against these aggressive decks. However, here we're kind of forced into doing that just to try to find a removal spell for this Adeline, and we just don't have any other play. We do find a removal spell, however, cannot kill Adeline right now. And so instead, we just opt to play out the second Grimflayer, which is good, should be good enough. Being able to block the Adeline and kill it is probably just the better choice rather than holding up Fatal Push and going for a Thoughtseize that's going to Lightning Bolt us, right? So we see another Brutal Cathar, which is quite problematic for us. They're going to be able to take our Scavenging Ooze and then attack us for a large amount of damage. We're able to trade with the Adeline, which is nice. You know, I was thinking after this block here, so I'll show you that we go with the block of Adeline and Hopeful Initiate. I was thinking that after this block, we could have actually just blocked both of the Initiates, kept both of our Grimflayers around, and then perhaps on our turn, if we're able to draw like a Vraska or any, like a Briar Tracker would work, any sort of Revolt enabler, we could just push the Adeline or even the Cathar, but I just wanted to go for the clean trade with the Adeline there. So we just draw a land, so that's not the best. We are able to Thoughtseize them. We see a Adeline and a Thalia's Lieutenant. I should have taken the Lieutenant because she just enabled the opponent to have lethal on board on the next turn. So a bit of an incorrect choice on my part. But we were pretty much going to be dead either way. So a little unfortunate in that case. But yeah, and we just concede there. And so for sideboarding for this aggressive matchup, we obviously want to bring in anything that's going to kill the creatures their opponent has. So it's going to be Noxious Grasp, Witch's Vengeance ×2, Witch's Vengeance being a very, very premium removal spell in this matchup. Obviously, Extinction Events come in, Kalidas is great, Elder Gargaroth is also a bomb, kind of like Witch's Vengeance. And then I typically do like bringing in the Hangerback Walkers in place of the Scrap Heap Scroungers, just because Scrounger is not the best in this matchup. And then thereafter, we just take out any card that is going to be dealing us damage. So it's going to be including the Treacherous Blessings, unfortunately, and then the Thoughtseizes. And then with this, we get a pretty clean list here. We're able to leverage the Hangerback Walkers, most likely just on turn 2, and then have 7 really nice late game bombs that we could cast that will probably just end the game thereafter. Even, I guess, 9 late game bombs, right, with the Witch's Vengeances. And so for game 2, obviously we do have those sideboard changes here, taking out the Thoughtseize, Blessings, and the Scroungers. Opening hand only has 1 land, so we do have to put it back, unfortunately. But we do get a functional hand second time around. So we're just going to put back the Golgari Queen. Pretty close pick of putting the Vraska or a land back. However, I just wanted to, against these aggressive matchups, you just always want to be hitting your lands, even if it means you're only going to be playing 1 spell a turn. And so I'd rather be more efficient in the early game than try to rely on a late game bomb, as the aggressive deck can just run us down if we stumble in the early game. And so, right off the bat, pretty interesting choice of playing the Blooming Marsh or Hissing Quagmire. I opted to go for the Quagmire just because if the opponent did have a 1-mana creature on turn 1, I probably just would have played the Hangerback Walker instead on turn 2 rather than just playing out the push. However, fortunately for us, we didn't have to deal with that because the opponent did not have a turn 1 play. And so we're just going to run out the Walker on X = 1. So the opponent has a Luminarch Aspirant, which is fine. We're just going to run out our Cemetery Prowler. Pass the turn. The opponent does have a Brutal Cathar for our Prowler, and then they get to attack us for 2, which is a pretty good exchange for them. However, we do get to just play out our second Prowler and then do something really, really nice on their next turn with the Fatal Push that we have in hand. So they're going to play out a second Brutal Cathar, which on paper looks quite terrible for us. However, in combat, you'll see how good this exchange is going to be for us. So they start combat, puts the 1/1 counter on the Aspirant. They're going to attack with both creatures, and so I'm pretty sure they thought for a while here in case we had a removal spell. But since we do have the removal spell, and they already triggered Revolt by taking the second Prowler with their second Cathar, we're able to push the attacking Cathar and then get back the Prowler and then block the Aspirant with the Prowler, getting a really, really nice exchange for us. And I'll just play through that here. And so now we're just left with nice 2 creatures against their 1 creature. And we even draw an exchange event for later on. And so we just attack with a Prowler, eating away the graveyard. Uniquely, I opted to choose to go after their graveyard instead of ours, just because I felt like I'd rather have a Delirious Grim Flare rather than getting a Scavenging Ooze, getting value from a Scavenging Ooze, just because we're so ahead at this point that don't think getting value off of a Scooze is too important. So they have an Adeline. They're gonna make this attack, which makes no sense to me. Perhaps they thought Prowler had 3 toughness, but we're just able to eat up the flipped Cathar and then block the token and then just make Hangerback Walker bigger. And then we do get back the second Cemetery Prowler from that Cathar, so not the best exchange for them. And then here we just activate Hissing Quagmire and attack for quite a bit of damage. And then you'll see that on the next turn, the opponent will just concede. Play a land and then concede. Alright, and so for game 3, made no changes post-board, just keeping in all the removal spells and taking out all of the cards that deal us damage and are not good in combat. So, first opening hand is very nice. A little bit land heavy, but not complaining with the nice suite of removal plus creatures. And Ooze and Tracker being probably the two most relevant creatures we do have in this matchup. So we'll keep and just lead, or the opponent will lead on a Hopeful Initiate, and we'll just play a Blooming Marsh and pass. Right now, don't have to worry too much about this Initiate, so wasn't too worried about pushing it right away. And we do see that the opponent has a Bodyguard. I was thinking perhaps if they had an Aspirant that we would have wanted to kill that more. And so just leaving up the mana, leaving the Fatal Push at the latest time that we have to cast it is probably the correct play. They do have cards like Brave the Elements that we do have to worry about, but I think this early on in the game, that shouldn't matter too much. And so the opponent will just attack for 1, and then we're able to push the Dauntless Bodyguard, just because we do have the Scoos in hand. I would rather just obviously don't want to be trading Scoos with Bodyguard in combat this early on, so just take out the Bodyguard and then render their Initiate, use this because we do have the 2/2 Scoos to block. And so we draw an Extinction Event, which is very, very powerful. And then here we're just going to play out the Scoos. And so we get blown up pretty hard here with this Extractionist Specialist being able to buy back their Bodyguard. Kind of sucks that we don't have the Scavenging Ooze mana to negate that, but nonetheless they do get that Bodyguard back. Just pass the turn. However, on this board state, you may be thinking that Extinction Event is looking to be very, very good, and you would be correct in that sense. And so that is why this turn I opt to just not play out the Tracker, just because their two best cards that could play next turn are going to be Brutal Cathar or Adeline. And so those cards being 3 mana, odd CMC value, I just opted to not play out the Tracker and then just leverage our Extinction Event even more so. And so, speak of the devil, they do have a Brutal Cathar, so they're able to snatch up the Ooze and attack us for 5. However, this turn we get to really just blow them out with the Extinction Event on odd, getting all their creatures out and then getting us Scavenging Ooze back. Just really, really powerful. And then the draw of Liliana of the Veil is just even more powerful. So they just play a Mutavault, pass. Unfortunately, Mutavault is quite good against Liliana, and so this turn I'm just going to run out the Briarbridge Tracker, and then just pass the turn since we don't want to be attacking into those Mutavaults. So they just play an Igonjo and pass the turn, which is really, really good for us. Was kind of confused as, maybe they're just like flooding out, but later on, I believe in just our turn right now, we're going to see that they have some Brave the Elements that are just rotting away in their hand. So we do play out the Liliana just kind of to ensure her as our way of winning this game. discard a land, and then yeah, we'll see that they do have the Bravely Elements there. And then we will play out our other creature, and then still not attacking because they could just double block our tracker. And so they play an Adeline, which is perfectly fine for us. We're going to start by trophying the Adeline. Doing this rather than playing Vraska and minusing, just because I would rather be able to double spell this turn than just play one spell, just to increase our presence on the board. And we do see that they actually do have a second Bravely Elements. So perhaps in this sense I should have plus the Leona first. However, for this turn I kind of just wanted to not plus her at all, just because we had a really, really sick lineup of just really powerful cards. And I think, you know, this trade is just fine for us nonetheless. And then we're able to, I believe, yeah, I might just Edict on the Adeline. Unfortunately for the opponent, they were F6'd, I believe, throughout this turn. And so they should have activated Immutable in response to the Edict effect. And so, because they were F6'd, however, they have to sacrifice the Adeline, and then we get to play out our Prowler. Really just to shore up the game at this point. And yeah, so they conceded there. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Unfortunately, we were not able to see Treacherous Blessing shine too much in that matchup. However, I do think this card is quite powerful, especially alongside Vraska Golgari Queen. I got this idea from Grimflayer MTG. Although he doesn't post any Magic content anymore, he used to be playing this in Modern Black Green Rock, and so I thought that it would be fitting to try out in Pioneer and see how it is. And like I said, I think it is nice against other mid-range decks and control decks. Other than that, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you were able to learn something, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.